Hello, beautiful friends. How do we heal a broken heart? I've been sitting with this topic for a few weeks now, and I finally decided to share a long video here and give you a process. It's not a formula. They're not strategies. This process is not linear. And at the same time, I want to give you a process, a map, if you will, of how to heal a broken heart. Now, you probably heard the expression before that a map is not the territory. A map just gives you some coordinates, some sense of where you are going. And yet, the territory you only get to know as you walk. And I want you to see this map that I'm sharing with you just like that. This is not a promise that if you do this process, everything is going to be healed and transformed. And yet, I am showing you a way which can lead you to great transformation and transcendence. So before I dive into what is a broken heart, first just think about a time that maybe you went through a hard breakup, maybe somebody passed, or you are experiencing a break of the heart in our country right now, as some people are experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of sorrow. Even though I'm going to be focusing more in relationships, you can also use this process as a way to heal even your pain about what's happening in the world right now. Because the truth is, if what is happening in the world, if what's happening in the collective, what's happening in our own country, in US, is triggering a lot of suffering, a lot of pain for you, I'm going to take the risk here and say with conviction that these external events are triggering some old pain that is in you. Perhaps the pain of a broken heart that you never healed, it never got transformed, transmuted, and turned into the wisdom. The intention of this video is to help you maybe to shift your mindset where you can really go, maybe you're already there, where the wounded heart can lead to tremendous, tremendous wisdom. What is wisdom? You come out on the other side with more self-love, more joy, more freedom, more resilience. And yet, the opposite of that, if you're carrying a wounded heart and you haven't put the time, the energy, the intention to heal, that can create a lot of more struggle, sorrow, and suffering for you. So the invitation here for you is, do you have a broken heart? Are you experiencing a broken heart? This topic is so dear to me because I have experienced a lot of broken heart in my own life, and I wouldn't be where I am today without those very hard lessons, that pain. And it comes to a point it doesn't have to be that painful anymore. And yet we cannot protect ourselves from pain, because if we want to live protecting our hearts from pain, we actually are closing our hearts. There's no such a thing like protecting the heart from pain, because live with an open heart is ultimate what allows us to experience this life fully. So part of this video is about encouraging to, no matter what, open your heart and keep your heart open. That doesn't mean you don't set boundaries. That doesn't mean you don't say no, that you don't protect your time and energy. It's nothing to do with that. Keeping your heart open is more like a consciousness state. It's not tasks and acts themselves. It's just a state of consciousness that you stay in a place of love and compassion. That is living with an open heart. The problem of carrying still a wounded heart is also a closed heart, because think about if you have a wound. If you have a wound, let's say you have a wound on your arm and that wound doesn't heal. You're gonna walk around your life always protecting that wound and not letting people touch their wound. You're gonna in fact keep people away because you're gonna be scared that somebody would touch their wound and it's gonna open and it's gonna bleed, it's gonna get inflamed. Well, that's how the wounded heart, the protect heart acts. We push people away, we push love away. And this is the paradox, because everyone, I can say this, everyone is longing for deep love, and yet is one of the things that is most feared in this world. It's kind of the same thing of saying people fear God, people fear the invisible power of this universe. People fear love because of the vulnerability that involves, and there's a lot of illusion wrapped up on that too. That will be a completely different video to just talk about the fear of love or fear of God. So let's stick with the topic here. How do we heal a broken heart? First, I want to make a big introduction of the heart here. Our heart, if we talk about the physical heart that feels wounded, that feels broken, we also have the spiritual heart that I'm going to call our soul, the light, the flame that is in our body. Like if we pass, if we go through a process of death, real death, the body's still there, but the soul, that life force, that flame that keep the heart beating, keeps the blood flowing, keeps the brain working, that's the soul. The soul lives. But while we're here, let's talk about where the soul is. In my own experience, the soul resides in that spiritual heart. It's that aspect of me that is wise, that can guide me way beyond the mind, beyond the ego. So there's a spiritual heart that can never be broken. It's intact. It's the aspect of us that it's love consciousness, it's wisdom, doesn't take things personally, it doesn't get broken. And yet we have this heart that when you go through a process of loss, it feels tremendous pain. So we're going to talk about how to heal this heart, which truly, if the heart doesn't break, what really breaks? It feels like the heart. But when we go through a process of a heartbreak, what is broken during that time, it's a lot of the stories that we create around somebody. Let's just speak in the context of relationships. Can be a relationship with a parent, can be a relationship with a partner, a relationship with a friend. But it might be easy for you if you went through a romance that didn't work out, just use the romantic relationship as an example. But when you lose a partner, let's say, you lose the potential, the things that could happen in the future, all the fantasies that we can't help but to build and make around somebody. We're waiting for that person that is going to save us from all our wounds or childhood wounds, and that is going to promise that future that we always wanted. So we build, because we learned this from childhood, we build a lot of stories around a person. And we make that person the center of our life. So when we go through a breakup, a heartbreak, all those stories that you wrote while you were with that person, or even before you met that person, through fantasies, they shatter. And that shattering is what really feels like a heartbreak. So we can say that a heartbreak is more of a break of our expectations, a break of our guarantees and certainty, because also we're seeking guarantees and certainty. We want a person to guarantee they're going to be with us, love us, treat us well, be with us forever. And the truth is, nobody can promise that. That is fantasy, that is Hollywood stories, and we grew up with those stories. So as we get older and we learn to the wisdom of the broken heart, we get to know the truth heart, the spiritual heart that can never be broken, and we start to separate more the stories from the heart. And that gets a little less difficult to handle when we know they're just the stars are breaking, but we are not breaking. And yet we can gain tremendous knowledge and wisdom in the process. I wanted to introduce you to also a concept that the heart is a portal. As I said a few minutes ago, if the heart is the seat of the soul, the heart is the portal. It's how you enter into the consciousness of your soul, which most people don't have experience, because to have the experience, to have access, to communicate with our souls, we need to, first of all, have the intention to learn and to communicate with our souls, and then we need to go to our inner world. We have to basically, that's why when I talk about the soul, I even close my eyes, because to get into the inner world, I shut down all the distractions, and I imagine I'm imagining a portal, a door in my heart where I'm entering, and I start feeling the energy of my soul. And this is a practice and can be hard to learn, but the only way to learn is to sitting in stillness, silence, solitude. That's what the practice, the tool of meditation, can be so helpful. So let's get into the practicality here. How do you heal a broken heart? I'm going to share this in 7 steps, 7 pillars, and stick to the end of this video, because I'm going to tell how I'm going to be teaching a 7-week course. I'm going to make it affordable to everyone, and I'm going to break down all the steps into 75-minute classes. So I'm going to go way more in depth and detail, because there's a lot to talk about here when it comes to a heartbreak, and I want to make sure this video doesn't get too long. So the first step is to understand, before I even get to the 7 steps, the first, I would say, mindset to adopt here is that the heart is a portal. And in the portal that you're going to enter is the place where you're going to get to know a lot of yourself. You're going to really learn about what your wounds are, how old they are, where they come from. And in that same space is where you're going to release and heal from those wounds. And I want to make very clear here that entering your heart, entering through this portal, has nothing to do with reliving past trauma, remember things that are very difficult. Yeah, you might have a memory, and your body is always going to show you in terms of feelings, emotions, sensations, and it might show a memory of something with the intention to liberate you. When you start entering this portal, enter into your soul, if you will, and see what's there, you start tapping into the wisdom of your body, the high intelligence, the higher mind, not the ego mind, the higher mind. And in that intelligence, you need to trust that your body is always going to show you exactly what you need to see. It's going to tell what you need to hear. It's going to give you feelings and sensations that you need to feel in order to heal, because we can't heal what we don't feel. So before you even begin this process, you need to adopt the mindset and even the truth that going to your wounds is exactly a space that you're going to heal. We hear beautiful poetry writers saying, it's in your, by going through your wounds is where you find your light. By going to your darkness is where you find your light. A broken heart is an open heart. So we have all these beautiful writings, and yet how do we bring this poetry, this spiritual truth, into the practicality of how we heal? How, not just how to heal the broken heart, but how to go from wounds to wisdom, so you don't repeat those patterns into your future relationship. How many times you have watched somebody in your life going from one relationship to another? So the first step of this healing, this process, is to recognize all the distractions, all the ways, perhaps you have been distracting yourself in order not to enter the wounded heart, in order not to feel. How do the distractions look like in everyday life? Well, they look like in the obvious forms. Too much TV, too much social media, watching the news, gossiping, sitting with people just judging and telling what is wrong with the world. So the conversations are always focused on the outside, and there's a tendency to judge, to accuse, to blame. That's a distraction. When we just sitting accusing, blaming, judging, and focus on the external world, is actually a protective mechanism. We're protecting the heart, and remember, protecting the heart is a closed heart. And we are living in our egoic mind. Just think about one thing. Your ego, which is a belief system in you, is a belief system of survival, and is rooted in fear. The ego never wants us to go into the heart, because when we go into the heart, we connect with our soul. In that place, the ego doesn't exist, and the ego kind of fights with his claws to stay alive. The ego is also a protection of those wounds. The ego has a belief that if you go into those wounds, you're going to relieve all that pain again, you're going to die, because the ego created a lot of protectors of the child. So as a child, through your difficult times or trauma, if you had, we all had, at least relational trauma, when we felt neglected, ignored, not cared for, and we made beliefs around that we were not enough, that we're not worthy, that we were a burden. The child cannot handle that kind of emotional stress. The child doesn't know how to understand, how to interpret that. So the child creates, the mind of the child creates protective mechanisms that starts form the ego, and those are strategies. So the ego is going to do everything to prevent us from going into the heart. That's why when you start this process, you can literally feel a fight between your head and the heart. And we don't need a fight, really. All you need is to keep sitting and setting intentions. Very important. The intention to get into your heart. And in my 7-week class, I will teach these practices. We won't have time to cover during this video. But the first step in this process is journal. Name it all the ways you've been distracting yourself. A lot of people distract by going from one relationship to another. A lot of people just avoid altogether. And they use words like, oh, I just need to get over this. I just need to get over this. This person is not worth my time. When you're saying that, you're basically saying, I'm not going to take the time to grieve. And grief is a very important process of healing the broken heart. So again, go to the first process, pause this video if you want, and write down all the things you might be doing to distract yourself from feeling your broken heart. Can be also in form of food, alcohol, drugs, and I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Even meditation, even in spiritual practices like meditation, breath work, yoga, can be distractions from feeling the broken heart. Anything that takes you, let's say, out of the body, which the spiritual practice can do, take you out of your body, in your heart. You can be using spiritual practices to bypass your transformation, the healing of the heart. So just make a side note of that. If somebody who has a lot of spiritual practices in your life, make sure in that practice you including checking in first. And then you can check out, you can get out of your body if you will. It's fun, but check in first. Go in, and then you can go to the upper centers, like your third eye or your crown chakra, and you can have a mystical experience, if you will. But if you're just focusing on having mystical experiences without feeling the heart, you are bypassing. And how do I know? Because I've done that myself. Second step. This goes back to the mindset. What are the stories you are telling yourself? So when you think about, if the heart cannot be broken, what gets broken are stories, fantasies, narratives. What are they? And if you're still caught in the sorrow and the struggle and the suffering of the heart, I'll invite you to write down what are the stories when you telling yourself, my heart is broken, or my heart has been broken for a long time and I'm just afraid to look at. Just write down what the mind is doing. What are the narratives you are telling yourself that is preventing you from going into the portal of your heart? Goes back to that distraction. So the 7 pillars I'm going to share with you, it's not linear, they're all connected. But explore the narratives. Also, if you, let's say, you went through a breakup a year ago, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, and you still in that process of sorrow and pain, it would be a good idea to ask, what is the story that you holding onto it that it's causing you to still suffer? Not to say that by 2-3 years you should be over, but I would say 2-3 years after a heartbreak, though that charge of that pain should, I'm going to remove the word should. Most likely, if you're doing the work, will be gone. If it's not gone, which is perfectly okay, I had a relationship when I was 21 years old that it took me 15 years to get over because I didn't have these tools. 15 years. So that's why let's remove the shoulds. There is no rule. And yeah, the invitation is, if we're holding into that story that I'm still have a broken heart, we need to ask an important question, which is this: what is this function of carrying this story of my broken heart? If we still like, oh, my heart is broken, and 5 years, 10 years, 15 years pass, and it's important to ask, what is the function of this broken heart? Because this is the trick that mind plays on us. A lot of times we believe that because somebody was important to us in the past, if I heal my heart, if I'm not in pain anymore, I am abandoning that person. I'm saying that person didn't matter to me and I don't want to let that go. That's the reason a lot of times people don't release and don't let go, and they live under that story of a broken heart. I have met people that are still mourning and they are blaming, and there's a lot of suffering of a divorce that happened 20 years ago. Why? Because there's a story and there's a function there. And I'm going to say at that point, it's no longer wisdom, because it becomes rumination, and you get caught in the victim state of consciousness, which is the number 4 pillar. But let's go to the third one. So the number 2 was learn your stories, the narratives that are keeping you suffering. It's important to know what the mind is doing. Number 3, this is where the deep work begins, because so far you're doing just mindset work, just kind of a lot of mental, intellectual work by addressing distractions, by addressing the stories, the narratives. Number 3, this is the process start to get deeper, because you're going to enter that portal. You're going to enter that portal and you will start feeling the emotion of that loss. What is there? That's where you're going to meet sadness. You're going to meet grief. You're going to meet even anger. You're going to meet your hurt. And also, most likely, you're going to meet guilt and fear. So if the primary emotions are sadness, anger, fear, guilt, and hurt, I would say hurt is a mixture of all, right? Hurt is a mixture of sadness and anger. And let's say the number 5 is grief, which is that deep, deep sadness. It's just an amplified sadness of that loss. You're going to find those primary emotions there. And this is where the work gets deep, and And this is where it really matters, because you need to allow yourself to feel those emotions. It doesn't matter if you were with a narcissist. It doesn't matter if you were with the kindest human being. It doesn't matter who that person is, because this work of healing the broken heart has nothing to do with that person. It's about focusing in you. Because also in this healing process, as I spoke earlier in this video, is going to hook and bring some old wounds, because guess who broke our hearts first in this life? Most likely, for you, it was your mom or your dad, or both, or a caretaker, or somebody in your family that took advantage of you, abused you, and hit you, or, did other things, or violated you. Most of our wounds come from mom and dad first. So when we struggle in relationships, anything that was not resolved with our mom and dad, if you're still doing a lot of inner child healing, if you haven't done the healing around your mother and your father yet, the world is going to show you where you are not free. And nothing better to see where we're not free than an intimate relationship. It's always going to show us. So that's why I call the heart is the portal. It can help us healing a relationship. Healing from a relationship gives a tremendous opportunity to do much, much, much deeper healing. I remember being in a relationship for almost 4 years with somebody, and it was a beautiful relationship, but also a relationship with a lot of dysfunction that I couldn't understand. And at the end of the relationship, it was the beginning of so far the most powerful time of my life, because I started doing a lot of very deep inner child healing, and I started understanding where I was holding a lot of anger, which can be very repressed. It's an emotion that gets very repressed for most people. I learned where I was holding a lot of anger, a lot of grief, a lot of fear, and it was so powerful that today I can say with full sincerity that I'm so grateful I had the relationship, that I brought that person to my life, because she was a catalyst of so much deep healing for me. So that's the portal, that's the wisdom here, and that's the mindset that I would like for you to be willing to accept. That through a broken heart, in a broken heart, if you see just this small lens, this small portal, it opens to a field that leads to so much liberation. So, entering the broken heart, it's about you feeling all the emotions that are there. And this is the process you might want to do with somebody like myself, through somatic healing, or with a therapist that you trust, but somebody that will lead you to your body, because healing happens in the body. Healing does not happen in the brain. You cannot talk your way out of healing a broken heart. You can have the mindset aspects, as I spoke in the first 2 steps, but ultimately you have to enter. You can't just stare at the gate of the heart. You have to enter. So you start feeling the emotions. That can get very intense. So you might want to do this with a practitioner. Number 4, this is a combination of mindset. It's also a combination of feeling, because you're going to find perhaps in that transformation, that path that you're walking, a place that you might be holding a victim consciousness. So the number 4 pillar is going from victim to warrior, or if you prefer, the mystic. I'm not saying that you are being a victim. What I'm saying is that we all carry the densities of the victim consciousness in us. What is the victim consciousness? It's inevitable for us when we get hurt, when somebody leaves us or betrays us. It's inevitable that we're going to point the finger and we're going to judge, we're going to accuse. you're going to blame. I watch one of my clients going through this process with his ex that she's attacking him a lot because she's not willing to look at herself. But when we just spend time accusing, we feed the victim consciousness. Somebody did to me. The victim consciousness is a very disempowering state because it's telling that they did to me, he did to me, I'm innocent, he's guilty. And the truth of that is, it's never that simple, because underneath the victim consciousness, there's a lot of guilt as well. Because we cannot accuse and find somebody guilty unless we're carrying a lot of guilt ourselves as well. And I'm going to make a whole video just about guilt. But victim consciousness, we're going to accuse. Now, don't get me wrong. We're all going to have those moments that we're going to have to vent. And we might say, he did that, she did that. It's okay. Just watch yourself when you're doing, and don't ruminate. Don't stay there, because if you keep feeding that, you will disempower yourself. And that is actually going to get you out of the heart, closed heart, and you're going to get into the egoic mind, because the ego loves to judge. The ego judges, the ego blames, and it makes you like the good girl, the good boy, and make everybody else guilty and bad. And that creates a lot of separation inside yourself. So that is, I would say, one of the fastest way to get out of your heart and living your ego is by blaming and accusing. And again, have mercy, have compassion for yourself if you're in that stage. Just know that it's a good idea. It's an intelligent choice to get out of that state. And I'm seeing this a lot even in our collective right now with our counselor, a lot of blaming, a lot of judgment. And this goes back to step number 1, distractions. If you constantly judging, blaming, even if you're doing that towards yourself, which can be so detrimental, so damaging to yourself, to your self-esteem. If you're doing that, it's a distraction. The more you get stuck in your mind with opinions, accusations, blame, the further you are from your heart. So just catch yourself and make a decision over and over. Sometimes you might need to make the decision 20, 30 times a day to come back to your heart. What's coming back to your heart? To be in a space of compassion. Compassion for yourself, compassion, and don't put too much attention on the external. Again, this work is done by putting the attention in you. So move from the victim state to the warrior state, to the one that can say, that can ask, how did I participate in this experience with that person? How did I unconsciously participate in this experience? For example, I have a client right now experiencing, some issues with the ex where she's attacking him with a lot of anger. And we found in a session, several sessions actually, how much anger he is holding in his body. So her anger is resonating with his anger. And that keeps creating this dynamics of war. Of, how divorces can happen, but one person keeps coming after the other to get more out of it, even though everything has been settled, but there's this constant attack. I have helped several clients to deal with this kind of situations, going from the victim to the warrior, because when you change that energy in you, because you change your consciousness, all of a sudden that drama ends, because these dynamics are happening behind the scenes. You don't see it. It's happening in an energetic level. The anger in me will hook the anger of that person. And that was the dynamics I had myself with a person I was with. So move from victim to warrior. How are you participating? That's what the work gets really deep. I help a lot of my clients to identify unconscious emotions, unconscious beliefs. They're hooking that external person, that event over and over and over, and that keeps the drama going. And we want to end drama, because the ego loves creating drama and the heart is dramaless. Number 5, forgiveness. This is a big topic, forgiveness. letting go, releasing the judgments, releasing the accusations and the blame. So this is very connect with number 4. Forgiveness first. If this word triggers you, just replace forgiveness for letting go or for releasing, cutting cords, sending blessings to that person, their path, and you stay in your path where you're no longer hooked. Forgiveness, most importantly, is for yourself, is forgiving yourself. I remember getting out of this particular relationship that I spoke about earlier, even though there's some dysfunctional behaviors there, at the end, I was blaming myself for a lot of the dysfunctional moments in our relationships. I was blaming myself a lot for also hurting that person. So I had a lot of self-anger. I even had some self-hatred. So in that process of going through that wounded heart, I learned how to forgive myself, how to release my guilt. And it's been an incredible process of liberation for me. So when you truly forgive yourself, like the Course in Miracles states, you forgive yourself, forgiveness of the other person happens by default. Forgiveness is never one-sided. This forgiveness that people speak of sometimes, like, I forgive you, but I won't forget. That is not forgiveness at all. That's the ego basically saying, I'm going to carry you and I'm going to carry that against you forever. That's not forgiveness. That's ego. That's being still in the victim consciousness. True forgiveness is to look behind and understand that when we react against each other, when we hurt each other, when we insult each other, we are acting out of the wound child. We are not in our soul wisdom. We are not in our higher self. We are acting, we're looking and acting from the state of our wound. So in that moment, we might be acting like the wounded 5-year-old, the wounded 13-year-old, or even the wounded 25-year-old. So we need to look behind that wound and really understand what is the pain, because behind those reactions, behind these insults, there's always a little voice there saying, can you please see me? Can you please hear me? I just want to be loved. That is the voice of both people. So once we understand that that is the voice behind our pain or wound or reactions, we also give that to the other. And we understand they're also acting from that place. And that's how forgiveness can start happening. You can force it, but what I just shared here, it's a state. As you start forgiving yourself, it's inevitable that automatically the other person is going to be forgiven, because it's a state of consciousness, it's a state of deep love that helps us to restore our innocence. The innocence of the child that just wants to be loved. We all longing for love. So that was step number 5, forgiveness. Number 6, focus on your inner world. This goes back to the previous steps, the distractions, also accusing, being a victim. Focus on yourself. It's very common in my sessions when I'm having a session with a client and we are working on healing the broken heart, or I'm helping a client to resolve an issue they're having with their beloveds. And a lot of times they're angry and there's a lot of accusation, and I might be in the session, I need to interrupt my client many times because my client might start focus on the heart, and then the mind will hijack and they will start accusing again and blaming the other again. So that's a distraction. Because when you keep going back to the mind over and over, it's a way of not feeling and not taking responsibility for what's really happening inside you. So if you find yourself putting your focus outside a lot, even right now, people putting a lot of focus on the president, what he's doing, what he's not doing, and what's happening with the government. Oh my God, it's all dark and gloom. That's a victim consciousness. That is a distraction. And again, it's totally okay if you're there. Just know what's happening. It's a distraction. And if you're willing to start exploring what is underneath all the blaming, because there's a lot of fear there, you start healing. So bring your attention to your beloved heart. And a lot of people say, well, that's selfish to do. No, that is radical self-love. There's nothing more. There's no highest quality of self-love than attending and healing your wounded heart. Why self-love and not selfish? Because when you heal yourself, when you heal your wounded heart, you're going to become free, more joyful, more loving, more compassionate. You're just going to amplify your light, and everyone around you will benefit. Everyone will benefit from your love. And some people might even come to you and say, what are you doing? Because I want to feel that way. You inspire others to do the same work. So you go in deep within, and then you radiate that light. It's like the torus that goes in and then pours out like a big water fountain. The water runs through and falls out, creating tremendous beauty and sounds and forms and shapes. That's what's gonna happen with you. You spend a lot of time going into your inner world, and you amplify your light, make a tremendous difference in the whole planet. So your healing becomes everybody's healing as well. You become a model of life, of love, because we have enough models of fear and separation. We have enough models of how to live in our egos 100%. We need more models of how to live in our hearts with the guidance of our soul, with the guidance from God or source energy. That is what we're doing here together. Number 7, radical self-care. I think I just spoke of this. Radical self-care goes with radical self-love. Radical self-care means you taking charge of your energy and your time. For instance, when I'm in a lot of deep work, because what do I mean a lot of deep work? This work is not linear. I might go through a whole week that I'm feeling a lot of deep emotions. Something old will come up, some old fear. So I'm in my heart. And it might be a week that I don't want to be in public much, that I don't want to be in concerts. I don't want to be attending to a lot of social things. So I say no to my friends. I say no to things. So that's what I mean by protecting time and energy. You need to get very comfortable saying no. No, because you're going to take a hot bath with candlelight, with some essential oils, some calm music in the background. You might say no because you're going to have an hour meditation and really sit with your heart. You might say no because you're going to take a long walk in nature. So radical self-care. You need to learn how to say no, because again, you got to focus on your inner world in order to be this beautiful lighthouse to the rest of the world. So these are the 7 steps. Again, I just mentioned them, summarized. I'm going to be teaching this for 7 weeks, 1 step each day, a full process, 75-minute classes. I don't have the dates yet. It's going to be online for right now. I might do eventually a full day of workshop or 2-day workshop on this. But right now, to keep it simple, to keep it affordable, accessible to everyone, I'm going to do this: how to heal the broken heart, how to enter the portal of the heart, access your soul guidance, and how to transform your wounds to wisdom. So you can transform, you can transcend, and live in freedom, joy, contentment, bliss, because those are the attributes of the heart. When you go from living in your mind to living in your heart, even through difficult times, you're able to stay in that place of contentment, of gratitude. You start seeing your challenges as a portal. What is this inviting me to learn, to see? What is trying to emerge here? And it becomes heaven on earth. You still experience pain, but you won't experience suffering. As I believe was Pima children or teachers of the East, they say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. What does that mean? When you decide to heal your heart, you're going to go through pain. That's inevitable. When we enter the portal, we're gonna feel maybe that pain of that 5-year-old in you, maybe the pain of losing your father, maybe the pain of that abusive mother or father. You're gonna feel that pain, but the pain is temporary, I promise you. When you suppress all this pain and you shut down your heart, you create suffering. And that's what that saying means. Suffering is optional. Now, I want to say this with a lot of compassion, because you might be in a state in your life right now that you might not have the bandwidth, you might not have the energy, the life force to do the healing. And I get that. Sometimes this life can be very challenging. It can be exhausting. So if you are in that space that you don't even have the life force to enter your heart and start going through these steps that I just shared with you, I will start from one place. Self-care. Start from step number 7, radical self-care. Take care of your body. You start saying no to people, say no to unnecessary tasks, businesses. Say no and start spending more time in stillness. Honor your rest. Resting can be one of the most courageous things you might do right now, because a lot of people in this culture think that resting is for lazy people. There's this guilt around resting, but all of a sudden I think resting became one of the most courageous acts of our society right now. You need to honor rest. So I'll start there. Honor rest until you start regaining some of your natural life force, because we by nature have tremendous life force. So if your life force is very dimmed right now, I would say it's another reason for you to set an intent to heal your heart, because these wounds, these suppressed and repressed wounds in our bodies, take our life force. You know, like when you have an injury, like right now I have a shoulder injury, and when my shoulder is in pain, it actually robs my life force. So I have to rest more right now. I need to sleep longer right now, because this injury is taking a lot of life force, because my body is healing this injury. So I'm honoring that, so the intelligence of my body can heal my shoulder. It's the same thing about the heart. You're going to need a lot of time. You're going to feel tired. This process of releasing, for example, when you're going through forgiveness, or you enter in the portal, you're releasing sadness, you're releasing only anger, it can leave the body pretty depleted, because you're detoxing. Just like if you have a deep tissue massage, or you have acupuncture, or if you do a detoxing, a diet detoxing, you might be left very tired. That's the same thing. When you're releasing emotions, you're detoxifying. You're having an emotional, mental, and spiritual detoxing. And that can leave you tired. That's why self-care is so important. So if you're in that place already that you're very depleted, and you're like, Alex, I don't have the energy to feel my emotions right now, start by step number 7, which is radical self-care. If I can support you in this journey, please send me a message. And if you have not signed up for my newsletter yet, make sure you go to my website, alexgillcoaching.com. Sign up for my newsletter. You get a free meditation to you when you sign up, because I'm going to be sending about 3 newsletters, no more than that, 3 newsletters informing the dates, the times of my brand new course, How to Heal a Broken Heart and Transform Your Wounds into Wisdom. Stay tuned. Go to my website right now, alexgilcoaching.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Leave comments below. Let me know how this video resonated with you. And send this video to friends. Maybe you have a friend right now that is struggling with a broken heart. And broken heart can come from many, many forms. It might be because what's going on in our country right now. Might be they're empty nesters. Might be they still mourning a divorce, a breakup. Whatever that is, share this message. Help me to spread the love. So for now, much love to you. Mwah.